lot of the things that you see as these typically presented as transformative technologies that completely change humanity, these people have them and they refuse to change. They're like, yeah, that's a nice tool, put it to work for us rather than have it enslave us. So these people have some nanotechnology, but they keep it in the box so it doesn't like wipe out the planet. Why would you do that? So the characteristic, the one thing that it's hard to see if we have it today, but is my hope for the future that drives so far the star, is that humanity learned a little prudence. That's all they manage, is that they still do terrible things to each other on a day-to-day basis, but in the long run, when they come up against something that's going to destroy them, they go, hey, maybe not. Perhaps we should decline. And so the world has gone on for thousands of years, and it's reached far beyond what we see now, but it's still people kind of just settling in and trying to get by.
This is actually another one of the themes of all Crafty Games products. Ultimately, these products are about people. First and foremost, we start with what does a character do? What struggles do they face? What are their wants and desires and fears? And Scott's managed to capture in Farthest Star a careful balance where, despite it being thousands of years in the future and there being wild technologies and there being thousands of worlds,
and in a genre that tends to cut a cookie cutter character.
Yeah, and huge storylines that cloud the characters out, we still manage to capture what it is to be human. 10,000 Bullets obviously is about as raw as you can get.
Yeah.
And World on Fire is sort of the finishing touch in that it's about what happens in the human brain.
I mean, if you wanted to draw a spread, World on 10,000 Bullets is what it means to be human when you have almost nothing, when you have to take it. World on Fire would be recognizable as what is it to be human in a world like our own, but a little worse. And
when you're pushed to the limit of your tolerances.
And Farthest Star shows you what it is to be human in a world of so much wealth that most people can't bear it. That people shut down and their ambition goes away because they have it all, but a few people still want to do something. You tend to be them.
But the crazy thing about it, character-driven games from us, is that they're still fun. You may know other games that are about personal horror or things like that, which involve a lot of angst and very little action. And then, if you've been to our demos, if you've listened to us talk about things, there's always something blowing up. And we're going to keep it that way.
Yeah, I wrote an editorial once about when I took over Doomtown, and I warned everyone. I said, look, when I take over properties, people die. I'm not saying that I'm going to send firebombs to your house, but you might be tearing up a few character cards, and that's just the way of the beast. Nothing is won without sacrifice, and that's a persistent theme.
That's very persistent in World on Fire in particular. So and then we strongly embrace cinematic role-playing.
Yes.
At all stages. Actually, the next Science Importance article, is that the one that's out already? Is that the August one?
I think they're all out at this point.
Okay, yeah. I don't know if you picked up the last Science Importance thing. That was my screed about, damn it, play it like the movies. Play it like the movies, because I constantly fight for this. At all stages.
For those of you at home,
if
you go to the Mongoose site, they have a free e-magazine called Science and Portents, and we regularly publish articles there now.
Yeah.
Some of them from us, some of them from helpers, but all of them about the Craftyverse and the various things that take place there.
So. And part of the design process that shows up in all of the Crafty work is from the moment we're thinking about what's going to actually happen at the gaming table.
Right.
That we may be trying to create a simulation of this or add a new option to that, but it's always the end goal is what's going to happen when you guys actually open the books and start using it.
What's the experience from the player's perspective and from the game master's perspective, and for that matter, from the mission leader's perspective?
When you actually have an outside person providing you material, what are they going to get out of working on it, and what's it going to do for you once you've got it right there?
Which leads us to, we're going to talk a little bit about further settings out,
right.
But we're not going to talk about them too much, because at this point, World on Fire is going to be out now, essentially, within the next month, maybe two, depending on how things go. FantasyCraft will be a winter product. Farthest Star will be close behind, at worst spring.
10,000 Bullets is also.
10,000 Bullets, yeah, will also be winter. And then we get into 2008 schedule, and that's really malleable. We can tell you the rough order things are going to come out in, but as for where and when is all completely up in the air. With the single exception of Crucible, I'm going to fight tooth and nail to get that thing out at Halloween, because it deserves it.
Yeah, yeah. So briefly, Shatterpunk is cyberpunk in a slightly different take. Every cyberpunk setting, it's right, wax philosophical about cyberpunk for one. Every cyberpunk setting is based on what's happening now. This game is not about war, so that's not the thing. It's actually my reaction to the 2004 elections is what started this. And it's not. I don't have any political agendas, but I do have. You have to look at something. Classic cyberpunk is about consumerism, radical consumerism, body modification, self-hatred, all the other things, big hair, things that we saw in the 80s. And people, have kind of advanced it and like, hey, let's throw some jewels and some magic in there. All right, that's cyberpunk today. This is cyberpunk about humans in the future. Like Scott's Farthest Star, this is about people rejecting the singularity. That people are, just because people can put a metal arm on themselves, they don't want to do it. In fact, it's kind of nasty. And it's set entirely in Southeast Asia, different world. The whole thing about cyberpunk, it needs to be exotic. It needs to be engage people in a different way, force you out of, oh yeah, we're in America, so we all carry plastic handguns.
But with people living in coffins in Asia now, classic cyberpunk feels a little dated.
So it's got a little bit of the Ghost in the Shell influence, because I thought it was wonderfully textured. But it's got a whole lot of other things that I just looked at today and go, let's add that a little bit. So it's something I don't want to give it away. But it's a world in crisis, and your characters, of course, are outlaws, because there's no good cyberpunk without being an outlaw. You need them to be a punk. It's going to be very different. I think that you're going to have some pretty wild characters. You're going to have like only one AI that's busy screwing up the entire world. Stuff like that. Created by Wikipedia. Yes. That's my favorite character in the whole setting, is the AI created from Wikipedia. So it's not God's. Jennifer Government is a great example of where I'm going with.
And a fantastic book.
Yes. If you've never read it by Max Berry, it's utterly fantastic. But yeah, Jennifer Government is a good idea of where we're going with Shatterpunk and things like that. But the exact details about it, I just can't get into. It's a little too early, but it's.
Crucible is, I can say even less about it. We're over a year out. But remarkably, it's come together more organically, and it's been a more fulfilling process than any other creative world-building exercise I've ever had. By the time it's come out, I will have had 2 years to work on it, which is really, really nice. I'll have a lot of time to actually embrace the core issues and figure out what the reactions to those issues are, and so on.
And for the casual viewer, it sounds like 2 years. Wow, you had like tons of time. It's like, no, that's actually barely enough.
Yeah. 10,000 Bullets benefits from more than that, but unfortunately it's also kind of traumatized. Yeah. I mean, it's not showing up like the bristling newborn Adonis ready to fight anything. It's more showing up like Bruce Willis after Die Hard 34. Like limping, his entrails are tracked behind him.
And he's still hard.
Yeah, exactly. But what I can do is I can tell you what Crucible is not. Crucible is not vampire.